What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, Nintendo is at it again with some sort of mystery playtest event that's very similar looking to one they've already done, but now it appears they're looking for many more people, and that's of course led to all kinds of questions around, are we sure this is still just a playtest? But we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Valve and this controversy now surrounding them removing games as people are looking towards the exact cause, and you're probably a lot more familiar with them than you're thinking right now. And we'll also be talking about GTA 6, as there is a current rumor going around that's pointing to the PlayStation 5 Pro actually being quite valuable next year. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Battlefield 6, as we have seen many clips of gameplay get out there online. EA has at least tried to keep this somewhat under wraps until a big reveal event. Well, now we may know when that is. This we can see over on Insider Gaming, who says exclusive Battlefield 6 reveal will be July 31st in a COD Next style event. So that weekend, so it'll be July 29th for 2 days behind closed doors, allowing content creators and the media to get hands-on with the game. Then on July 31st, Battlefield 6 will be officially revealed to the world with gameplay, developer interviews, and more. So them naturally saving everything up, trying to have one big blowout event, as they then, I assume, head towards first half of 2026. Some have still wondered if there was any way they were going to make it for holiday, but this does feel, I don't want to say last gasp for Battlefield, but it's been a struggle with the past several releases. They do need a home run here, and the fact that Vince Impella is coming in to sort of head the project, you feel like this is almost their all-in moment for it, so they want to make sure the reveal is this massive thing. Seems like it would make sense here to bring everyone together, and then July 31st have a big blowout reveal for it, so I guess we'll look towards that at the end of this month. Also, Ubisoft had a Q&A with investors, and it was a very strange thing with some of the stuff that was flying back and forth there in that room. However, we did get information around a new Ghost Recon game. Now, they name-dropped this as some of their future projects using the 10-cent investment. Well, we also know sort of what perspective apparently it's going to be. We can see this. This is over on PC Gamer, who's quoting them, saying, used for future development, that being the investment from Tencent of other major brand names. So we've got Ghost Recon, it's just one example, for our first-person shooter type games. Now, Ghost Recon most recently, and I say recently very loosely because at the start of the Xbox 360 generation, we had Ghost Recon kind of move to like third person mostly. And before that, though, I remember playing even on the PS2, it was first person at that time. But really since the early days of the 360 and PS3, it's been third person. So this kind of going back, I guess, a bit to the roots here with this one. But either way, Ghost Recon's in a very strange place because Ubisoft loves their live service stuff. They love tying it into as many games as possible. And, well, it certainly hit Ghost Recon hard. So they'd have to make a pretty big recovery with this new first-person Ghost Recon, and really, who knows when it's going to be ready to show anyway. Oh, and we do have that Pokemon Presents tomorrow. It looks like we know how long it's going to be. We can see this over on X. It's from Light, who says the Pokemon Presents scheduled for Tuesday will have a runtime of 24 minutes. This was confirmed after the official Korean Pokemon YouTube channel unexpectedly uploaded the video placeholder ahead of time. I mean, 24 minutes. The thing is, when I look at these Pokemon Presents events, it's very clearly, obviously it's in the title, it's for Pokemon fans first and foremost, but not necessarily video game Pokemon fans. There's a lot of other stuff there. They'll certainly talk a lot about mobile games, the card games, merchandise, and then the video games will be in there somewhere. I'm not expecting a new generation to be unveiled here. I think we may be waiting until Pokemon Day of next year, but I'm sure they'll have a few things here to discuss. So either way, for Pokemon fans, clearly, you're probably going to have fun with it. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and this mystery event. It's a play test, and it looks like it's going to be the same kind of thing they did last year, which was very weird when it showed up because we had no idea what this thing was. I mean, there was a point in time where we thought it was going to be them maybe testing GameCube emulation through the Switch. Well, it turns out it was a very odd, I mean, just very Nintendo kind of game that almost mimicked an MMO, but also tied in things like Minecraft and just like city and community building. It was very strange, but after it ended, that was kind of it. Nintendo really hasn't referenced it since then. There's footage out there of this playtest, but we really didn't have much of an explanation as to why they did it or what it was going to lead to. And now the continuation is another playtest. This we can see over on Nintendo's official account, where they say, we will perform another test in the Switch Online playtest program from 8 a.m. Pacific on July 21st. Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members can apply to participate on a first-come, first-served basis. Okay, so I mean, all I can assume here is that this is similar to what happened last year, and maybe it's the same game, but just more. I mean, the way they phrase it here, it's a test in the Switch Online playtest program, as in when they do want to playtest stuff, this is sort of the avenue they go. So it very well could be something different. If you go over on the website they set up here for it, the webpage, they sort of go over exactly what you need here, as they mentioned with the expansion pack tier. Here's the thing though, as I was going through sort of the application guidelines and stuff, which they have the playtest period here, it's going to be Monday, July 28th, 6 p.m. Pacific to Sunday, August 10th, 5:59 p.m. Pacific. So it's, I mean, that's almost 2 weeks, just about 2 weeks there. And that's starting next week then. I was going through, I'm like, all right, let's go ahead and apply. I get to the bottom here. You can apply individually, but check this out. You can also apply as a group. And I started filling this out because I'll get some of the people from the Spawncast. We'll just go into a group, and maybe just a group invitation and setup, maybe that's more likely to get you in. So I've kind of gone through. So you have people, a group of 4, and then you have one person set it up basically as like the leader, and then everyone else kind of piles into their room and you send the application together. It kind of feels like, yeah, Nintendo was looking for a lot of people who almost, just know each other there, that maybe can participate in a similar setup where you will be interacting more, because they did have people interacting. It was almost like this general hub that you would go to and interact there, but then you would kind of go off on your own to like these grid areas of this world, and you would kind of build things out again, similar to a Minecraft almost. It just seems like a social environment that Nintendo is maybe playing around with in the background, but it's kind of hard to do stress testing unless you open it up to the public, or here just your expansion pack member tiers that, that they're playing. The thing that was kind of interesting is I didn't see anything mention what system are you playing on, Switch 1 or Switch 2? So I guess this is something continuing on even with the Switch 1, which if they want to really stress test it, they would have to open it up to that group as well, because that's still the primary number of people on their Nintendo Switch Online or expansion pack, since there's just so many of those systems out there. So, I'm hopefully going to get in. I don't know what the NDAs will entail there, because they were very serious about pulling down footage and striking channels and stuff. So I assume it's not something I'd be able to necessarily talk about, but I'm sure it'll get out there anyway, and maybe we can cite that stuff. Not sure that works, but I'll take a shot, see if we can get in and find out exactly what Nintendo's doing here with this second mystery playtest. Next up, let's talk about Valve and this controversy stemming from them banning games almost out of nowhere. And really what's happened is they've updated their content guidelines, and then several games sort of fell into the status of, well, we have to remove them because you're not following our guidelines that maybe just appeared the other day, and now we kind of know why. So let's take a look. This is posted over on Automaton Media. It says Valve has updated its rules regarding content that developers aren't allowed to publish on Steam. It's reported by GameSpark and then translated over. The rules and guidelines section of Steamworks documentation now has an extra clause, and it suggests that publishers are required to comply with rules and standards set forth by various third parties involved in processing electronic payments. Seems to predominantly relate to adult content. Now, there is an entire list right now. SteamDB is kind of tracking this, and they listed a bunch. It was like 20 some odd games or something there. And yes, it was very much adult content is what I'll say. But up to this point, it's stuff that Valve has just kind of allowed on Steam anyway. And look, Valve is very loose with their curation. It's one of the reasons why 19,000 games or so released onto Steam last year, and it continues to rise. And now they're dealing with the idea of AI development. How could that impact the number of games hitting Steam at any one time? But there was a response, this coming from Eurogamer, who happened to get that from Valve, as they said, "We were recently notified that certain games on Steam may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors and their related card networks and banks. As a result, we are retiring those games from being sold on the Steam store, because loss of payment methods would prevent customers from being able to purchase other titles and game content on Steam." So I think there's this view, for the most part, in gaming of Valve, where they're kind of this gold standard that they're not necessarily going to just go around and just start tearing down games and doing things that gamers aren't really approving of. But this is a moment where you do realize that Valve is indeed still a business. Yes, they're a privately held business, so they're not necessarily having to be beholden to public fate, like shareholders, investors, all of that. But there's enough there where they go, oh, okay, if the payment processors, the people who work to process your payments and give us money for games, if they're not on board, we might have a problem. So we're now going to remove some of these games because they've asked us. And yes, the payment processors, then you're probably adding it up in your head. Yeah, it's Visa and MasterCard. And that's the biggest thing now. It's people are so fixated on the content that is being removed, whether they agree with it or not. But up until this point, Valve has been fine with it. It hasn't really broken any laws or anything there that would require them to remove it. And Valve will do that if there's stuff that shows up that is like actually against the law. Like, not that. And that's it. It doesn't pass through like lot check or whatever curation. But for the most part, they're pretty open to games showing up until payment processors apparently show up and dictate what they can and cannot have there. And that's the biggest thing. So right now we're looking at a small subsection of games that most people out there, like 99% of people, haven't heard of until now. But now many people are aware that, wow, the payment processors really have a lot of control in this situation. And yes, they do. They have control over pretty much all platforms, because now more than ever, we're moving towards less and less just cash in general, but two, we're moving more and more towards a digital landscape in terms of like marketplaces. So you're gonna be very reliant on them. Yeah, if people are also trying to figure out who made the complaint for them, and it seems like some names are coming up there. But again, the primary focus is, wow, okay, yeah, Visa and MasterCard have a lot of control in this situation, and you know what? There's just not a lot that can really be done about it. You're going to probably use a Visa or MasterCard most likely from your bank. And then you also look at PayPal, and it's like they could also get involved. So that's the thing. While we look back and forth at all these game companies and stuff, it really does come down to who handles the money. And in this case, Visa and MasterCard. So here's hoping they're not heavily offended by the amount of violence in something like GTA 6 or any other titles there that maybe they don't like what's in it, because then who knows what that future could hold. Next up, let's talk about a rumor for GTA 6 that made the rounds very quickly over the weekend, because it seems to point to the idea of the PS5 Pro actually being worthwhile. Okay, so the PS5 Pro, for people who are big resolution graphics aficionados, they probably do enjoy it, and it sounds like there's a new FSR update going to it next year, but it's quite pricey. So it would have to do something pretty impressive that only it can do, and maybe that would be GTA 6 running at 60 frames per second, which is something that has been kicked around here and there with speculation. Well, now we can see Detective Seeds, who is saying that, according to a source they have, specifically PlayStation engineers who are assisting with the optimization, they say it's being optimized for a 60 FPS mode. That's specifically through like a fidelity or performance mode, as they're listing several of those then being included for the PS5 Pro. And then they also go on to cite a Rockstar and PlayStation marketing deal that's allowing and even encouraging this collaboration on optimization. So Sony is known to come in and help out studios like Shift Up, for example, with Stellar Blade, or Death Stranding 2. I mean, that was a big thing with XDev, how they really wanted people to know that they were involved. So it's not a new thing that Sony would come in and help out. And if they did get marketing for GTA 6, as is mentioned by Detective Seeds, they would bundle systems with the game. And that would be like an incredible push, like more than 5 years into the generation. It would certainly mess up the typical bell curve that we see over time, where you hit a peak in terms of sales for the year, and then it kind of just tails off as just everyone who wants a PS5 would have had one. No, instead, you would probably see a resurgence in terms of PS5 sales. But is this actually a thing? And that's kind of what people are going back and forth on now, because the limiting factor, in my mind, for GTA 6 would probably be on the CPU side. And that's kind of the question now. With the visuals that Rockstar clearly wants to push with this game, will something like the CPU be able to hold up its end of the bargain in an open world game like that, along with visuals that should, I think, set the new high bar for the medium in general? Well, I guess we'll find out probably by the end of the year. If they have the marketing deal, you assume they would want to start talking about it more than 4 or 5 months out. But I guess we'll find out here whenever Rockstar is ready to talk again, and we'll see if Sony is there ready to roll. Although, if you think about it, they did mention that the GTA 6 was running specifically on a PS5 for mix of gameplay and cinematics. And then there was like PlayStation looking stuff in the trailer as well with the system and that kind of thing. So maybe there is something there, but we'll have to wait and see for when Rockstar is ready to talk again. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Sucker Punch and Infamous, which is a game series that comes up now and then. I know for the superhero side, a lot of people are looking towards Spider-Man. Clearly, it's very popular on the PlayStation, but it's not an intellectual property or franchise that's completely owned by Sony. They just have the movie rights. They do indeed have to go to Marvel, as we've seen those very, very expensive licensing fees in order to use Spider-Man in their games. Well, Infamous is, at this point, a storied franchise for them in that kind of superhero space that they sort of forgotten about since Sucker Punch moved on to Ghost of Tsushima. Well, in a new interview, funny enough, about Ghost of Yotei, you can see here, this is with one of the co-creative director, Nate Fox. They asked, would you be open to revisiting Infamous maybe for a trilogy re-release or something like that? Nate Fox says, I would love to work on more Infamous. I would love to see a trilogy re-release, but Sucker Punch is a one game at a time shop. And right now we are very focused on finishing Ghost of Yotei. Look, the interview was about Ghost of Yotei and Sucker Punch, so it's not like they want to veer off into the world of Infamous when that's not something they're there to promote or really discuss much. But this started to catch headlines because, yes, it's Infamous, and, I still think there is a lot of potential for this franchise. One, it's wholly owned by Sony, so they don't have to be like, oh, what are we going to do about that $100 million licensing fee for Marvel? No, instead, that could either cut back on the budget or, go into just more development time or just resources for the game to be better. I think with Infamous, as we had Second Son really being First Light played off of that as well, but the idea of there just being multiple characters they can turn to and even create originally, I think there's a lot of flexibility as to what they can do, and even crossovers at times if they want. That should be a whole universe that they could have really built out. And I get the idea is, look, sometimes studios want to go off and do something else, and they did something very different with Ghost of Tsushima. And I like that they did, because that's an awesome game, and it's one I'll probably go back to years and years down the road and play again. Ghost of Yotei, same thing. It's very similar, obviously, and I'm curious to see what they can do building off of Tsushima. But then the question comes up, do they do that again for a third game in a row? Like, do they stick with kind of the Ghost of and that feudal Japan, or do they go back to Infamous? I kind of feel like going back to Infamous is the move, and in fact, having Sucker Punch be able to handle, I'll say 1.5 projects, not full 2, but 1.5, that being a remaster or remake of maybe some of these Infamous games in the form of, I think even the first 2 would make sense, because Second Son already exists through backwards compatibility on the PS5, but 1 and 2, that's on the PS3 through streaming, and it's not great. I think there's a lot of potential there. I'd prefer seeing that over a Last of Us remake, or Last of Us Part 2, or Days Gone, but here we are. That's all through streaming. But hey, maybe after Ghost of Yotei, they get together and go, you know what? Let's get Nixes together with us or something, and let's get Infamous 1 and 2 as a remake or remaster, and also put it out on PC. A lot of potential there, but we'll see what's next for them after they're done with Ghost of Yotei, and if that's the path they want to follow. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, have you played either of the PS3 Infamous games? So 1 or 2. It is 50-50 right here. 50% yes, 50% no. That's on, at this time of recording, 16,000 votes. There are some people in the comments who are like, yeah, I played these games over and over again. Love kind of the comic book storytelling they had. Infamous 1 is such a gem. If you go back and play them now, and especially through streaming, as I look at this time, I can't imagine most people with a PS5 have a PS3 in the closet somewhere that's still reliably working now. Some do, but not most. You're going to go through streaming. It's extra crunchy through streaming. I'll tell you that now. So it's available if you have like the PlayStation Plus Premium, but I just feel like there's a lot of potential still left on the table for Infamous. I mean, the game, Second Son, I still enjoy that game. It's a fun game. It still looks awesome. Think about that back on the PS4 in like the earlier days. It is an incredible looking game. But now I think about what they can do with the newer technology. And at this point, it might be a PS6 game if they start now. What kind of visuals and other gameplay elements could they do separate even from a PS4 with a mechanical hard drive? Again, a lot of potential for that franchise. I hope Sucker Punch does kind of feel the urge to go back to that franchise just to see what else they can do. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Red Turtle, who says, one thing I would like to discuss in regards to the Switch 2 game keycard download codes is how will third parties play on a physical game card, seeing how most AAA games are north of 100 gigabytes. We know Nintendo exclusives play well, but how will Call of Duty run and Elden Ring if run off proprietary game cards? Well, I assume Elden Ring, they would be able to get underneath 64 gigabytes on the Switch 2. Call of Duty, that might just be a code in a box, to be real with you, because if you look at the other consoles, Call of Duty isn't even on the disc. It's 70 megabytes, and you have to download. It's a game key card. It's a game disc code. It's a disc key card. Disc key. Basically, it's not on the disc, okay? That's the idea there. And we've already seen that with Microsoft through Indiana Jones, and Jedi Survivor is more than 100 gigabytes, so what happens? You have to still download a good chunk of the game. And that's the biggest thing that these companies are about to face. What happens when many games are above 100 gigabytes and it exceeds the storage capacity of the PS5's like 100 gigabyte Blu-ray disc? The Xbox Series only has 50 gigabyte Blu-ray discs. So to me, at that point, you do end up in the land of just these disc keys, these game key cards everywhere. And that's the moment I believe that we really start to make a push towards digital anyway. And it wouldn't shock me if Sony and Microsoft get out ahead of the game and the PS6 and the next Xbox are just digital across the board. And then maybe Nintendo realizes by the time the next system shows up in, I don't know, 2032, 2033, that the landscape is completely changed and it's all digital, and maybe that's the path they go to. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave that up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear some of my thoughts around Donkey Kong Bonanza with no spoilers. I actually played quite a bit of it over the weekend, and in fact, finished it yesterday night. I'll leave that in a video right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.